completely disagree with you when you describe General Museveni as a Pan-Africanist. I think that's a complete lie. He cannot be a Pan-Africanist. Secondly, you say he's an elected leader. I can tell you, and I can just say it on record, that General Museveni was not elected by the majority of the people of Uganda. Every Ugandan, be it a young child in this country, so what happened on the 14th of January, that is not an election that you can talk about. But above all, look at all despots on the African continent. When they fail to deal with the problems at home, they hide under the shadow of Pan-Africanism. You can talk about Gaddafi, you can talk about Hosni Mubarak, you can talk about Mugabe and all these others. So when you talk about General Museveni focusing his speech on Pan-Africanism and all that, that's what they do because they cannot answer the citizens. He was swearing in while citizens, our comrades, are at Chitaria and in safe houses. Just yesterday and the day before, over 100 people were just arrested, picked up and taken, and you saw the kind of atmosphere in the country, where, you know, guns everywhere. No, citizens were not in celebration. They were, the country is definitely in mourning. Now, someone goes, swears in, how is he expected to talk about the conditions in the country? Look at the economic conditions of our people, the poverty, the disease, the national debt, which is skyrocketing every other day. The national debt that does not correspond to the services that the people of this country get and the people of this country deserve. So what can he talk about? And he has had 35 years, they've had 35 years. Come on, I'm just hearing the Honorable Babu here talking, and I feel very betrayed because he's a senior leader in this country. We have a constitution which promises democracy. You cannot come here and say that that's just theoretical. This is what he promised his country. General Museveni, in his earlier years, said that the problem with Africa was leaders who overstay in power. Those were his own words. So how can you now say that, you know, all of a sudden that does not count, that we need somehow 300 years to be able to become democratic? But that is what they sought to do. And that is what our constitution promises. Now, if you say we have a constitution in place, which constitution means nothing more than the paper on which it is written, I mean, you cannot talk about. So when you talk about the next 5 years, I don't want to look at the next 5 years, because for us, as the forces of change, what we're involved in is a struggle for change, a struggle for liberation, to get our country from this malaise and liberate it.
You know, Captain Francis Babu, I'm inclined to believe what David is talking. Like, when you've run out of what to actually tell the people of Uganda, then you go into generalities of Africa. Because here, there's the issue affecting the people. Like, for example, one clear example in the health sector, health services. If somebody fell sick, God forbid, today, and you are admitted in any of these hospitals in Kampala, even if you are a corporate Ugandan, you may need to sell your own land because you cannot afford.
Unfortunately, Kamara, the narratives of my friend here has been the same. It's like a song. It keeps repeating itself, like a dead record. You have to be very careful. First of all, he has lied that I said 300 years. I told you the United States has had 300 years and they've never perfected democracy. Britain has had 800 years. I would not say Uganda needs 300 years. Now, that's the problem they have. They keep twisting everything somebody says. I'm telling you, yes, we have to build democracy. Yes, it is in our constitution. Yes, how many of those tenets of democracy have we achieved so far? On the road to democracy, how far are we on that road? To me, that's how I speak. I do not go with my friend here, nor do I go with anybody else. I'm telling you, we have a democratic process. The question, apart from electing every 5 years, what else do we have in that, in the ingredients of democracy? What else do we have in there? Another point, please don't deceive yourself. President Museveni swore yesterday. Whether you like him or you don't, he's now the president of this country. You have to find another narrative to, and by the way, I don't agree with my brother here. He keeps on giving us numbers, but he's never proved it to us. It is talk. It's hot talk. He went to court, he withdrew. He came out, then he said, this man has never won. I want him to prove to me that this man has never won these elections. He has not proved to me. I'm a citizen of Uganda. I am not tied to Museveni like a little dog. No, if he can prove to me that Museveni never won those elections, not only by talking, not by social media, which they are very good at, I want him to actually show me that Museveni did not win. Now, from that point on, when you keep on saying, I like to agree with him, I like to agree with that. No. Yes, I agree. There are a lot of problems in this country. And I'm one of those who have been fighting those very problems you're talking about. We are talking about building this country. Now, let me give you a very quick, a small thing, if you'll allow me. The old Greeks had categorized their citizen into three. They had a citizen called an idiot, not deficient in the mind, but idiot, I'll just define it for you. Then there was the tribalist. Then there was the citizen. Three of them. The idiot was a man who was self-centered, a man who was greedy, a man who only wanted for himself everything. A man, if he came to our government today, he would do completely the wrong things that you don't want to hear. Then we had a man who was a tribalist. He lived, a tribalist not by the tribes like we come from, but tribalist was defined as people who belong to a group, and he only thought about that group, and a thing like if he was religion, he would only belong to that religion. The last one was the citizen. Now, that's what we want to get. In Africa, according to the statistics, we are not even 10%, the people who really love these countries. Now, after we've gone there, let me put it this way. In this country, I agree, there are some bad and good people. And even in my party, there are some bad and good people. Even in other parties. Now, the political class in this country is not doing us a favor. And I'm not going only to go to NRM. I'm talking about the whole political class, including Rubongoya, by the way.
So what kind of winning was it when you have members of the military involved in the campaigns? What winning was that when you have the military shooting at people November 19th on the street, killing 50 people? What kind of winning was that when you have the major opposition leader incarcerated in his home? What winning was that when about more than 50 or 100 people are picked by the military, arrested in ungazetted places of detention? What winning
Kamara,
was that?
if you want to change the government by force, it's going to fight you back.
No, if people have committed a crime, Captain Francis Babu, arrest them, take them in known places of detention, take them to court. If they lose the case, send them to Luzira. You cannot be a government and get involved in abducting your own people.
You brought two issues. What happened in November and the people who were arrested. Let's tackle each one.
The whole process is rigged.
No.
Maybe I need to help
Let's
him.
tackle each one.
If I could come in.
Let's tackle each one. What happened in November was a riot. A riot that you do not have all the facts. You only have the pictures that you saw. What is behind? That's what we would like to know. You would like to know, don't you? You would like to know why the police and the army had to react the way they did. Why don't you talk about the police stations which were burnt? Why don't you talk about a judge who was molested in Ruero? Why don't you talk about a court which was desecrated?
Because I saw children who were shot dead. I saw senior citizens who were shot dead.
I was going to there.
Unarmed civilians shot dead. I saw a disproportionate use of force on the streets of Kampala and blood on our streets.
I was going there. You did not allow me. Whenever you have a confrontation between armed people and civilians who are also using other methods to fight the armed people, there is bound to be people who, unfortunately, who get hurt in that situation. And in this case, you are right. There were people who were hurt, who were not supposed to be in that game. Yes, there are people who were hurt, and it's unfortunate. And the government admitted that there are people who died, and there are people who unfortunately died who were not supposed to be there. They did admit. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of our people died that day. Now, from there, I would have wanted a true story. Why are these people arrested and taken to that prison you're talking about? I'm sorry, I don't know where it is even. Kitalia, is it Kitalia? Why are they there? I cannot answer that, unfortunately, because I'm not in the security services.
He's a Secretary General of the major opposition political party in Uganda today.
Yes.
He has seen firsthand. In fact, he has seen firsthand the harassment by the members of the security organizations in Uganda. The ground that is not leveled. You made it very difficult for them just to come out and campaign.
Yeah, but
you could not even allow somebody to pay money and go on a radio station and talk about his manifesto.
To every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. let us
I
be
wish
very
it was
careful.
even equal.
No. Let's be very careful. Whenever you carry out a certain action, and you are using a certain approach, that approach will have a reaction. I am not saying it is good, but there was a reaction. Whatever these people were intending to do.
So what equal reaction is that when a 16-year-old child is shot dead?
No, that's unfortunate.
But this is the pattern.
That what they call that when there is a stray bullet and kills somebody. There's a word in English they use.
Collateral damage?
Yeah, collateral damage. Yes, I agree.
So all of them were collateral damage?
Not all of them. They admitted others were collateral damage and others were not. They admitted.
All right.
The government admitted. That's the whole point. But they might have admitted incorrectly without giving us
David,
the right numbers.
you say the president was not legitimately elected. But maybe where exactly do you base, by the way?
Well, first of all, before I even answer that question, and I really wish I would get as much time as he gets to put his points across. You know, for me, this is the greatest betrayal to our nation. For senior citizens, really to come up, and they're justifying clear things which any other logical person can see are completely wrong. And I hope that we can improve, because when a senior citizen comes here and in a way starts justifying the murders of the people that we saw on the streets, people moving in sandals with guns shooting randomly at citizens of this country, and he says that the government came out and acknowledged, we want, up to now, no one has been charged in a court of law in relation to that incident. No one has been, arraigned before a court of law. There has been no accountability whatsoever. They say they are investigating, but he knows people were killed in Kasese a few years back. No accountability. No one has been charged. In fact, the people who commandeered that operation have only been promoted. People were killed during the Kayunga riots here, the protests that happened during the Kayunga times, and there has been no accountability. So I expect at least, the least you would expect from a person who wants to describe himself as a senior citizen is an acknowledgement that we are headed to a very wrong direction. But about the winning, you ask the right questions to him. He needs to understand that an election is just not an event. And I would expect him to understand that. He just talks about the numbers. Yes, the numbers are in our favor, first of all, and we put the numbers out there. Our website was attacked and put down. Even up to now, if you check it, it is still down because we are trying to upload these DR forms, and our website went down.
So David, you really want to mean that in all of these districts of the regions, because in Buganda, yes, you won in Buganda and parts of Busoga, we have a parliament of almost 500, and Loop has about 60 members of parliament. Really, you have districts about 146. I don't know how many chairpersons of district chairperson you have. You have youth leaders in parliament, 5 of them, all of them NRM. I find it very difficult to believe that all those people voted for NRM, but on the presidency they voted for.
No, but that's what we're talking about. It's an environment. Remember that we are dealing with
you're talking about the numbers, because the numbers on the day, because it really doesn't add up.
No, I'm talking about 2 things. First of all, an election is just not about the numerics. It's also about the environment. And when you talk about the environment, if you look at, for example, the disenfranchisement, the levels of intimidation, our candidates, kidnapped and abducted. Our candidates in northern Uganda, several of them were just kidnapped, and they later showed up after elections were done. Our agents, our supervisors who we sent across the country were just chased off polling stations, arrested, and kept away. So that kind of environment happens or occurs both for the president, but also for members of parliament. I can tell you that even the challenges you get, for example, how much money are you expected to pay for nomination fees? NRM, using government resources, will pay for all its candidates, and therefore will be able to field candidates for all positions across the country. In our case, people are struggling because the levels of poverty. NUP is essentially a political party of young people, as you can imagine. These are people who were just coming out to try their best, put their foot forward.
Yeah, that's what I want you to maybe to confirm. On the polling day, NUP did not have enough numerical strength to have more votes than Museveni.
It actually did. It actually
so
did.
You are telling us that you got only 60 members of parliament in a house of 500. They think the others are overwhelmingly NRM. and that in all those constituencies, they voted for other MPs, but when it came to the presidency, they voted for Honorable
What
Chagulanyi.
I'm trying to explain to you is that the same rigging that happened for the president happened for members of parliament. When the military was sent to a polling station, for example, to carry out ballot stuffing and whatever they did not only do it for the president, they did it for the members of parliament as well. So when we talk about these...
By the way, there are some places where you didn't even have candidates.
That's what I was trying to explain to you from the start. I said that when the playing field is not leveled, these are the challenges you get. And I gave an example. I told you that, for example, when we as NUP, we had only 3 months from the time we unveiled the party to going into these elections and everything like that. But we were able to get over 350 candidates who expressed interest in that short time that we had. But I can tell you that by the time of nominations, those who could even afford the money were about 240 out of the 350 that had initially expressed interest. Why is that so? Because the NRM will go and pay 3 million shillings, which the government, which NRM, of course NRM and the government in this country is one and the same thing. Every citizen knows it. They pay for them, they pay for their candidates at all other levels, and then the opposition is expected. So that's the environment we're talking about, that you do not have nomination fees. Honorable Chagulanyi, our presidential candidate, how is he expected to mobilize people? And we could see the patterns that where he was able to reach, whether for a campaign rally or whether for previously when he was still allowed to do music shows, we had many people expressing interest even to run under the party. But as you know, he was not allowed to carry out consultations, which are within the law. He was not allowed to move even for burials. One time we went and attended a Thanksgiving party in Kasanda district, and the moment we showed up, the DPC came and declared the meeting illegal. So how are you expected to mobilize, to get candidates, to get people coming to participate in elections on the opposition when actually these people treat citizens in that way?
So, Honorable Captain Francis Babu, you're saying democracy is a process, you have to keep perfecting it, really. If we are taking baby steps in our journey for democracy, people like you and the NRM should be nurturing this system, trying to water it, helping it grow, but not to stifle it.
First of all, Rongo, you have to be very careful when talking to some of us. I do not justify anything. I do not agree anything which is wrong. I condemn. I'm one of the very few people in NRM who condemns. I don't agree with you because your narrative, all of it is wrong. You keep on lying to the whole of Ugandans about yourselves. You put yourself as very people who have had it. But we know very well you are receiving money from abroad. And you received it in dollars, and some of it was caught by the government. Now wait a minute, I'm coming. I'm coming. Let me talk. He said I was talking, but yours were allegations also. All the things you are talking are actually allegations. You never speak the truth.
You wanted him to substantiate, so
he couldn't substantiate.
So you do.
Did he substantiate?
Because substantiate.
You asked him a very good question that all members of parliament went through. He said they rigged for them. That is oil. In fact, some of their members were paid for by NRM. And today, I want you to be very careful, Rubongoya. In fact, today you disappointed me. I am one of the very few people who condemn anything that is wrong. But I will not agree with you when all the people like us tell you, please go slowly. You are a very good upcoming politician. In fact, let me tell you, I am one of the very few after they had won who said, I am happy the system they used worked and they got votes in certain areas. I supported that. But I am not going to accept when they say wrong things that I keep quiet. No. And in fact, I'm going to guide them. If they want to win the next elections, they have to change their approach. You do not go every time to play around with government. And you think you can play games.
What do you mean?
Let me give you an example. When they went to Chambogo, when they were going to Chambogo, they were given a route, each one of them, including President Museveni. You go here, you come back, you go to your area. And if you want to go and give your manifesto, we shall also escort you there. In their case, they were given a route they did not want to use. And when they got to after they had been They realized if they did not follow the route, they might not even be registered. They got there late. They were registered. After they registered, they did not want to follow the route to go back where they came from. They wanted to go somewhere else, and they created a scene so that all the media in Uganda would say that they were against their leader.
Oh my goodness.
These are the kind of games they play. And by the way, let me tell you, stage management games, stage managed.
I saw people who were clobbered so badly.
Captain
Francis Babu.
Wait a minute.
I saw people
that they were supposed to go back to their home.
Whose clothes were ripped off. Their bodies.
So Captain Francis Babu now is a prophet.
Excuse me. When you box a policeman, when you remove his mask, you don't think the policeman is going to go after you? Tell me.
He's a prophet. He knows what we are planning to do.
Let us try. But you're the one who's
no.
You're the one who's a prophet.
You just said no. You just said, Captain.
No. I'm an old man. I am telling you, you have to change your stance.
No.
You have to change your approach.
Please.
You are doing very well. You did very well in Buganda. You did very well. The narrative was accepted. Your ploys were accepted. Your tactics were accepted.
No.
Now it is time that you change your tactics and ploy and stop everybody who talks about you and tells you what's not right. You try to vilify him.
First of all, let me just come in and say this.
No, don't vilify people.
Let me just quickly respond to this. First of all, this narrative that you young people.
No.
General Museveni, when he went to the bush,
do you mind if I tell you something? Give me a minute. I want to tell you something. No, I want to tell him something. In 1966, in 1962, the people who took over a government were young. The eldest was 37. The second one was 35. The others were all below 30.
So now,
exactly. So what's the point?
Let me come. The people who took government, even with Amin, were young. The people who came from the bush here were all young. All right, are you with me? So when this young thing, I know, I'm coming up because he's trying to use this thing about the young and old.
But you're the one who just said that I'm trying to explain it.
Throughout.
So why are you scared of young people this time around?
Who is scared? The people in our party, you were here, Kamara. We had Young Parliamentarian Association. We had PAFO. These two produced a party, and some of them now control NRM. We've never been afraid of them because we have a league of the youth.
Well, I really hope that this debate can be a bit more civil. But let me just say this. The narrative, I mean, he keeps throwing around the narrative, you young people, be patient. And I can tell him that when Museveni and his people took to the bush, they were young people, they were impatient. And they said, we must change this country. These people now, having been in power for all these years, you know, like the late Right Honorable Elia Kategaya said, they are now living unrealistic lives, and they're just living in some form of unrealistic existence. They are completely detached from reality, and when you hear him speak, you see a person who is completely detached from the reality. How can he say, for example, that we are trying to do a stand outside Chambogo? When Honorable Chagulanyi followed the route, he went, was nominated, and he was, arrested right at the, I cannot even call it an arrest. He was literally abducted right outside the gate of Chambogo, where the nomination venue was. How can he say that we are trying to play a stunt? And that's why I asked, is he a prophet? He says, they were planning to, to do something else. I do not know how he can even say that. Yesterday, they had an event.
But Captain Francis, that was true because...
Let me explain something also.
They were captured right there at Chambogo before they could even exit.
They wanted to go to Kambocha instead of going back to Magere. Let's be honest.
But
let him be honest.
You see, and let me just remind him.
And the police said, no, this is the route you follow. And he refused.
This is very interesting that they wanted. How do you even conclude that this is what they wanted to do?
It was even on TV. Let them bring the footnotes.
Okay, you conclude your
anyway,
point.
The other point I was making was, and I really, really hope that we can have leaders of integrity, people who will come and speak the truth for what it is. Yesterday at Kololo, they invited 4,000 people. We are facing the second strain of COVID-19. These people were clobbering us left, right, and center, and saying that campaign meetings must be restricted to 200 people. Everywhere we went, we were tear gas, people were killed, people were shot, dead, in the name of COVID-19. And yesterday, all of a sudden, it was as if there's no COVID. Right after the election, you saw General Museveni move from his home, and they tried to put some people together in towns to assemble and that kind of thing. There were no masks. All of a sudden, it was as if the pandemic is done and gone. Look at the enforcement of curfew. It only applies when there is a political situation. When they feel either threatened or they think there are likely to be protests, they come up with a statement, now curfew will be imposed strictly, will be enforced strictly. Other times, it's as if it is not there. So honestly speaking, the double standards, and someone comes and does not seem to even have an inkling of that kind of situation. So Patrick, the Ugandans who are watching us out there, I believe they know the truth. They saw the kind of violence we went through. They know that what we had was not an election. And let me tell you something. They keep talking about, oh, you won in Uganda. Come on. I can tell you that in northern Uganda and western Uganda, there was literally no voting. We had a call center, and I can tell you, I do not know how many calls we received on that day. And people who are watching us from those areas can tell you what was going on in those areas. People, soldiers coming and, putting in ballot papers, the overwhelming levels of ballot stuffing and all that. But also, we presented to the nation several, because we could not put everything out there, but we have in our possession, and some of them we made them public.
Why couldn't you replicate the formula in Uganda to other parts of the region?
Because the levels of consciousness and the security deployments and other factors.
How about the level of support?
No, I mean, the point I'm making is, for example, if you look at the levels of consciousness, and that's what we get to see, that everywhere dictators normally rig a lot more in the peripheral areas. And that is why, if you look at the way they announce results here, they always begin with Nakapiripirit, they begin with Kabong, because that's where they do most of the rigging. In more urbanized areas, it is much more difficult. And I'm not saying that even in Uganda there was no rigging. There was violence, there was rigging, there was that. But the levels of consciousness and the ability of citizens to stand their ground was higher. And so most of the rigging took place in northern Uganda, in western Uganda, and far east.
All right.
And like I said, I just wanted to finish this point. We put out there several DR forms where, sometimes Honorable Chagulanyi's votes were given to a person like John Katumba. In some cases, Honorable Chagulanyi gets 200 votes at a polling station, and they just remove the 2, and it remains 0-0. Some of these, we put them out there, and they're available for anyone to see.
All right, David and Captain Bob, we're going to take a break, and on this, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Honorable Captain Francis Babu and David Louis Lubongoya. Now, I saw the president talk about the young people during his speech after the swearing in, and he said, the young people in the ghetto have been misled, and that sometimes he wants to send them a message. I suppose that was money, and doesn't reach because maybe through the channels of NRM there's too much corruption there. I think that's what's meaning. I mean, this issue of corruption that started in 1986, coming through the 10-point program, 35 years later, as NRM, you've failed to win the battle against corruption. It is actually increasing.
Yeah, but I think NRM...
And I could feel the frustration of the president in his speech about the system being corrupt.
First of all, I'd like you to allow me. My brother here used the word integrity. Integrity starts when you're young, Ongoya. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you that you do not have integrity. Because if you had integrity, you would not tell us lies about elections where clearly somebody else won. That's point number one. You went to court and you withdrew. If you had gone to court and proved to us that actually what you're saying is true, probably today we would have a different talk completely. My dear friend, I do not agree with the 4,000 people in Kololo. I do not agree. Me as Babu. In fact, I hear during the debate, even the Secretary General did not agree of NRM. There are people within NRM who did not agree with that. However, everybody who went to Kololo did a COVID test. All the people who went there did COVID tests. That's the argument they were giving.